Thanks a lot. So, what prompted this talk was creative writing classes. So you see these advertised on university prospectuses and online, these kind of courses that try and teach you how to write a novel or a collection of poetry in a month or a year. And I think that's great. It's great getting people involved in writing. But it always makes me wonder, is writing something you can teach? Because for me as a writer, I feel that writing's not really just about using words and writing words on the page. It's a way of sort of seeing the world, and it's a vision that you have to kind of create these ideas in the first place. So rather than do a presentation which is how you can become a writer and why, I'm going to instead try and explain how, in fact, I can't tell you to be a writer, and here's the reasons why. So first of all, I can't teach you that writing should be your one and only thing, the thing that gets you out of bed on a morning, and the thing that you're compelled to do no matter what. So I've been writing since I was about 6 or 7, since I was kind of physically able to put pen to paper, and it's always been my passion, really. And when I was about that age, it was something I just did because I was kind of bored, frankly, and I wanted to make my own entertainment with my weekends especially. And we did have other forms of entertainment. We had videos and things, obviously, in books and magazines and everything on television. But maybe to some extent, we weren't as incapacitated with entertainment enough to try and make our own. One thing that I tried to really get involved in was reading when I was at a young age. And the Goosebumps series was my absolute favorite. I'm not sure if anyone else remembers that. But they were kind of like teenage horror books. And I used to read them from cover to cover in a single afternoon. And they were really inspiring to me because the author of the Goosebumps series, R.L. Stine, he was great at writing kind of suspenseful stories. And I really was inspired by that. And I wanted to write my own stories that would be just as gripping for someone else. So here's just a few examples of Goosebumps book covers. And the guy in the bottom right is actually young Ryan Gosling, who starred in the TV series and went on to star in La La Land and Drive, obviously. As I got older and got into school and everything and worked my way up primary school into secondary school and all that, I started writing my own stories in school exercise books that I'd just kind of nick from the classroom, frankly, and take home and kind of try and fill just with my own ideas, my own characters and stories. And it would just be something that I'd also get recognition for, and that would make me want to do more of it and get better at it to get more recognition for it, frankly. Apologies if anyone's epileptic. Yeah, and as I kind of got older and worked my way up and went into university and all that, I experimented with different forms of writing plays and poetry, and tried novels and things like that. And also kind of at least once a year, well, maybe once a year, maybe once every couple of years, I try and write in solitude, because I think solitude is quite important for a writer to kind of take yourself off into the wilderness and write without any of the distractions that you feel in everyday life. This is my tent in the Highlands. It's not there all the time, but that's where, I pitched my tent randomly a few years ago. I took myself away for about 4 days and just stayed in the Cairngorms, just took a pen and paper and some whiskey and just kind of wrote for 4 days non-stop and didn't see a soul. So what I'm trying to say is I can't teach you that writing should be a one and only thing and the thing that you kind of compelled to do above anything. And if you look at some of the many great writers out there, if you take J.K. Rowling, who obviously before she was a billionaire author, she was a very busy mother, and she was working jobs, and then she had a period sort of signing on as she was writing, but obviously she was kind of trying to raise a family at the same time. And she said about writing, sometimes you have to get your writing done in spare moments here and there. Will Self, to the left, he said that you have to treat writing like it was an affair, so you have to kind of sneak around before and after work, kind of trying to satisfy that urge to get your work done if you're too busy otherwise. Isaac Asimov, the sci-fi writer, he wrote 500 novels in his lifetime. That's the equivalent of writing a full-length novel every 2 weeks for 25 years. So it's obviously absurd to think that I could teach you to feel compelled to write as these great writers are, rather than it just being a hobby. And even as your hundreds of characters wait patiently to see the light of day and to be published, I can't teach you to feel like a 7-year-old flying his first kite, giddy on lemonade, as you write hundreds more at your keyboard. So I think writing can feel like you're dizzy sometimes, that you're a bit high, and it can feel like a drug sometimes when you're in the throes of writing your next big story, and it's quite exciting. It takes a hold of you. This guy's called Hunter S. Thompson, and he's a brilliant writer, pioneered gonzo journalism. He wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, The Rum Diaries, both of which became films. And he was also renowned equally, perhaps, for his drug use, and he took psychedelic drugs quite a lot, and he was kind of off his head as he was writing a lot of his career. Didn't stop him becoming a great writer. But he said that despite all those drugs that he took, he said that writing was the greatest high the world could ever offer him. And I think if you're a writer, you understand that. You understand that writing can take over your consciousness sometimes and give you a buzz to just want to get up and create. And I think it's impossible to teach someone to feel that deep connection with writing, that it actually takes over what you want to do. I mean, it's more than an addiction. I actually feel it's kind of a force that takes over you. It's something that's kind of part of your destiny, really. It's something that's driving you to just get up and write, as everyone has a purpose, and I feel like if you're a writer, you understand that to be yours. So just to explain that, have you ever been sat on a park bench and you kind of randomly, you just sat there, you've got nothing else to do with your day other than just kind of while away an afternoon, but for no reason whatsoever, sometimes you just feel the urge to leave and to just get up and leave. And I've always wondered, what is that? What is that feeling that just makes you get up and leave for no reason at all? And I've kind of given up trying to work out what it is specifically, whether it's God, whether it's karma, whether it's kind of your gut or something, but whatever it is, it somehow feels right to trust it because it knows what you want to become. And I think if you're a writer, you will know that feeling. You'll know that feeling that's kind of compelling you to write. And I think it needs to feel like that if you're ever going to succeed as a writer. And of course, it's absurd to think, again, that that can be taught. I can't teach you to believe you'll be one of the great writers. And I can't teach you to believe in this so much that you start to see it. So you definitely need belief to achieve anything, I'd say. But can you teach belief? Can you teach self-belief? Personally, I think it's more about how you handle your own experiences. So writer Andrew Solomon said, in a recent TED Talk, he said, "To be successful, you need to fold the worst moments of your life into a narrative of triumph, evincing a better self in response to the things that hurt." So just for a second, I just want everyone to think of one of the worst moments in their own life, something that you've not forgotten for whatever reason, and just think about yours as I tell you about a couple of mine. So the first one was when I was 15, and I'd been playing football since I was about kind of 9 or 10, and I'd got on all right at it, really. I was playing for my town, and I was playing for my school, but then when I was 15, it just became a little boring. It became a bit of a chore, and I wanted to give it up. So when it was the end of the season, I went up to my PE teacher, and I said, I want to quit playing football kind of forever, and he looked at me, and he said, "If I was your father, I'd be ashamed of you." I know, shocker. But and I thought to myself at that very moment, like I remember as if it was 5 minutes ago, I thought to myself, well, no, I'll show you what I'm capable of someday. The second kind of moment that I remember is when I was about 10 or 11, and my mother and father were fighting downstairs. They were going through a divorce, and I was upstairs in bed, just trying to sleep. It was a school night. And obviously not ideal. I didn't really know what to think. All that security was kind of fading, and I was worried and everything. But then there was a moment where some moonlight shone in through the window and cast a little spidered glow against my wall, and I reached out and touched it, and for some reason, just thought to myself of all the dreams I'd have in the future and make sure that I'd make it happen for myself and that I'd somehow feel better than this again. And of course, I did. So, obviously, I asked you to think about some moments that you had. Obviously, I'm not going to pick on anyone. But I just need to say that I feel like people try and encourage you to skip these memories, and I feel that they're missing a trick, because I feel like you can use negative experiences, spin them into positives, by very simply just imagining that they're hiccups along the story of your success, and kind of that they're just challenges to your self-belief. Just like kind of natural disasters sometimes test the faith of people who believe in God, because it suggests that God isn't omnipotent or omniscient. Just like that, disasters in your personal life can test your own self-belief. And I think, no matter how hard those moments are, they can spur you on to try harder, to right those wrongs. And I think that's kind of a coping strategy in all sorts of ways, really, not in a context of writing alone. And you might think that this is deluded, I don't know. But to just focus on the example of an undeniably successful person, Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple, of course, he built it from nothing to the world's biggest firm. He was adopted as a child, and he struggled to get that thought out of his head that he was adopted as a child. And, obviously his thoughts revolved around the fact that his biological parents, for whatever reason, gave him up as a baby. But then as he kind of got into his teenage years and had a bit of ambition about him, he started to flip that into a positive by not imagining that he was given up, but by imagining that he was actually realistically chosen by his adoptive parents, which completely spins the experience on its head and turns it into a positive. And from that moment onwards, he felt special. And I think that's another thing that apparently millennials feel special. We feel that we're special people. We're raised to believe we can fulfill ourselves and achieve our dreams. And I feel that that's great. That's incredible, really. Steve Jobs believed in self-belief. He said, "The only ones crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." And I've always thought that positive thoughts attract positive actions. I really believe that. I kind of feel that if you're striving towards something, whatever goal it is, it's kind of like water. It's like that momentum. Water is going to get to where it's going to go because it's got that momentum. And I feel that if you're going to achieve something someday and you're putting everything into it, then the same will happen. You'll get to your destination. And I think that however you arrive at self-belief, it's essential for writers to have that, I believe. So as a writer, I can't teach you to believe that millions of readers will read your books, that even non-readers will be aware of the many film adaptations of your work. University lecturers will say things like the audacity of didactic prose when talking about your work. Even the crappy poetry you wrote as a teenager, even the crappy student play you wrote will be regarded as the early writings of, and it'll be to wide critical acclaim. And I feel that you can't teach that level of self-belief, even if that stuff isn't going to happen during your lifetime. It'll happen after you're dead, but I can't teach you to believe that unwaveringly amidst all the rejections you'll get from newspapers, from magazines, from competitions and things like that. And I can't teach you to keep going and believing that in the end you'll either succeed or give up. And that goes for everyone, really, not just writers, but designers, artists, any creative people. If you believe in something strongly, I really feel you will achieve it without doubt. I can't teach you to write about what you know, because everyone's life is already novel-worthy. And because you've been through things, you have things to communicate with other people, with complete strangers, and that's the end game of literature, communicating and enriching people's lives and making them better. I feel that writing is about kind of writing something that will take another person's hand who you've never met and make their life sometimes worth living. So in my spare time, I run a project called Found Fiction. And it's basically where we take anonymous short stories that are written by some of my friends and people from all over the world actually send them in. We print them out. We write, instead of the author's name at the bottom, we put hashtag found fiction, fold it up, put it in an envelope, write read me on the envelope and brand it with a double F, and just leave it somewhere random to be found and see what happens. And we've been doing this for a few years now, and across York, where the project started, and in Leeds, and throughout the UK, and things have happened across the globe where things have been picked up as well. And it's really resonated with not just readers, really, but anyone who happened to stumble upon them. We've got some lovely tweets there that you could probably read a letter at a time. But yeah, and it's gotten kind of children interested in reading, which I thought was awesome as well. But I think my point would be that it also connects people, complete strangers, and it can completely transform their day. And this is just a small-time project compared to literature generally, and the power of that. So I'm going to read the email at the top there, but I'll just paraphrase it. So it's someone who was basically going on a date, and we put a short story in a menu at a restaurant in York, and this girl didn't know about it. She was on a date there, sat in front of this menu, and as she was waiting for her date to show up, he didn't. He stood her up, and she was upset, but as she was waiting for him, she was just thumbing through the menu as you do, and she found a story, and she thought it was the best thing ever. She took it home, and she was in a bubble of glee, which is what it said there. And she kind of wrote and read all night, and she's one of our distributors now. She distributes envelopes for us around York and around the country when she goes traveling with work. So I think as a writer, you need to know that you're there to enrich people's lives. And I don't feel like anyone succeeded in anything where they didn't know the ultimate purpose of what they were doing. And I feel that you can't teach that to someone. You can't teach someone that to know that their work could possibly make someone else's life better. I can't teach you not to look for inspiration, but to let it find you. So there's inspiration out there, there's stories out there all the time. It's not necessarily something you create from within yourself, you just have to spot it, it's all there. The raindrops racing each other down the windscreen, the to let and for sale signs outside houses, a woman waiting for a bus at the wrong bus stop. It's all there, and it's all stories that you can tap into and unlock. This is from the film Adaptation, concerning the stories that are out there. People are murdered every day. There's genocide, war, corruption. Every day, someone in the world sacrifices his life to save someone else. Every day, someone somewhere takes a conscious decision to destroy someone else. People find love, people lose it. Someone goes hungry. Someone else betrays his best friend for a woman. So I can't teach you to realize that inspiration is everywhere, and you need a certain type of vision to spot it. And you don't have to create something from within, as I've just said, because everything has literally been written before. Literally everything that human beings have ever written, are writing, and will ever write does exist on a website called the Library of Babel. And it's a website that contains pages and books and volumes of literature within shelves and rooms within a virtual library. It contains every combination of characters on the page, so theoretically contains all possible human text. So everything I'm saying right now, every email you've ever sent, your next business strategy, your next poem, your next text, everything's on there. In fact, this is something I found earlier. This sentence I'm saying right now at Stac at Belgrave in Leeds already existed right here in the Library of Babel, amid a lot of other gibberish, which most of the books have in. But you can find the next poem, the next anything that might change our world. And who knows, maybe that gibberish is a language we don't yet understand. And it's not just in writing, it's in all forms of art. So music, this is DJ Shadow, his debut album Introducing, which is, I think, 20 years old, was composed entirely of samples. So he made that album with every track is a drum beat from this, a jazz solo from that, maybe a quote from a film, and it's all mashed together, other people's work. So he made something completely original, that was entirely a composite of other people's work. So he's doing the same thing in music as I'm saying that you need as a writer to spot stories. He's got the ear of a musician. It's the same in all art. So this is Michelangelo's sculptures, and he thought of sculpting as bringing out things from the rock, bringing out characters from the rock he was sculpting. He didn't obviously create the sculptures out of nothing. They were trapped, as he saw it, in the rock in the first place, and he had the vision to see them and to bring them out of that. So it's not always about creating something new, it's about having the vision to spot what's there in the first place and the potential that it can become. I can't teach you to keep your mind fertile for ideas. I can't teach you to realize that light bulbs, aeroplanes, skyscrapers, anything amazing that mankind's ever created are just shadows, really, of ideas that have come to people. Ideas that are kind of floating around our collective unconscious, which is the place of pure inspiration that you only catch a glimpse of now and then. And I can't teach you to take other people there in with your words, and I can't teach you to feel comfortable spending time in that place, which isn't easy. And again, that goes for anything creative that you do, that moment of inspiration. It can't be taught how you get there. You just kind of have to know yourself. I can't teach you to do something different. So I'm a professional writer as well as a creative writer. I write for a marketing agency in town. I'm on a career ladder, but to get here, I've had to make sacrifices. I've had to take low-paying entry-level jobs and internships and things across the country. I can't teach you to try something different just to get started on the ladder and to kind of forget about practical comforts, just to focus on what's really important, which is your own fulfillment, your own development. When I first got into the employment market, I was obviously, like everyone, focused on getting my dream job. But what's the point in having your dream job straight away? Because we're going to be working for the next 50 years, probably. So what's the point in having it straight away and then having nowhere to go for 50 years? It's got to be something you work up to. So fundamentally, I can't teach you not to get rid of your inner 7-year-old, Gideon Lemonade, as he's creating hundreds of characters. And I can't teach you not to lose this sense of possibility, because in the end, it's all we have. I can't teach you the vision, belief, and resilience you need to be a writer, because I'm still working at it myself. Thank you very much.